welcome back. Or, if this is your first night here, welcome to Sleepy Voyage. The world feels different after the celebrations end. Not worse, not better, just softer somehow, as if everything has exhaled. You've carried so much these past weeks. The planning, the presence, the effort of showing up when you needed to. And now that weight has lifted, even though you didn't realize you were carrying it until it was gone. Tonight, we're spending time in a house that knows what it means to be still again. A place where the ordinary returns, not as disappointment, but as relief. Where the silence after celebration feels like a kindness you didn't know you needed. Before we begin our journey into these quiet days, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. By doing so, you ensure this refuge will always be here waiting for you on the nights when the world feels too loud, or when you simply need permission to rest. If tonight's story brings you peace, your support means this place can continue existing for others who need it too. So let the day finish itself without you. Let the house hold you the way it's been holding Eleanor all evening. And come with me now into the gentle aftermath of Christmas, where nothing is expected and everything is enough. After Christmas, the world doesn't end. It simply becomes quieter. The lights are softer now. The rooms feel larger than they did a few days ago. And for the first time in a while, nothing seems to be waiting for you. This is one of those evenings that arrives without an announcement. No plans, no expectations. Just the quiet return of ordinary time. The house seems to notice it first. The way the air settles. The way the silence feels familiar, not empty. As if the walls remember how to be still. Outside, winter holds everything gently in place. Inside, the day loosens its grip. There is no rush here. Nothing needs to be finished tonight. Some people find these days after Christmas a little strange. Not sad, not joyful either, just open. As if the space left behind is finally wide enough to rest in. If you're listening now, this moment already knows how to hold you. You don't have to follow every word. You don't have to stay awake. This is a quiet place. It doesn't ask for anything. In the kitchen, a familiar mug sits where it always does. A chair waits near the window. The light rests softly on the wall. And somewhere in the house, Eleanor moves through these small, ordinary moments, the way she always has, without trying to change them, only noticing how gentle they feel when nothing else is required. Tonight is not about what comes next. It's about what remains when everything has finally grown quiet. The afternoon light comes through the window at an angle Eleanor recognizes. Not the sharp brightness of midday, but something that knows the day is already thinking about evening. It touches the countertop first, then spreads across the wooden floor in a slow amber wash that makes everything look older than it is, warmer than it should be in December. The kitchen still holds traces of recent days. A serving dish sits drying beside the sink, its edges catching small glints of winter sun. Two chairs remain slightly pulled out from the table, as if whoever sat there simply stood up and forgot to push them back in. There's a cloth folded over the oven handle, its corner hanging just slightly uneven. Small things. Details that speak of movement that has already passed. Eleanor stands near the counter, one hand resting on its cool surface. She wears a cardigan the color of faded burgundy, soft from years of washing. Her fingers trace the edge of the counter absently, feeling the worn laminate that has been there longer than she has. The house is hers now, has been for 2 years, but sometimes it still feels like it belongs to someone else. Someone who knew how to fill it better. She touches the handle of her mug before lifting it, testing the temperature with the tips of her fingers the way she always does. Still warm enough. The tea inside has gone from steaming to merely heated, the way she prefers it. Too hot and she can't taste anything. Too cold and it feels like drinking an old intention. The mug itself is plain. White ceramic with a single hairline crack running down one side that never quite became a break. She's had it for 15 years, maybe more. It came from a set that used to live in the cabinet above the stove, back when there were 4 of them. Now there's just this one. The others broke or chipped or disappeared into that quiet erosion that happens to kitchenware over time. Eleanor lifts the mug and takes a slow sip. The tea is chamomile with a hint of honey, though she didn't add much, just enough to soften the edges. The warmth spreads down through her chest, settling somewhere near her ribs. It's a small comfort, but it's hers. That matters more now than it used to. Outside the window, the world is winter still. The bare branches of the oak tree in the yard stand dark against a pale grey sky that seems to hold snow without releasing it. The grass is frost-edged, each blade outlined in white. Nothing moves out there. Not the wind, not the birds. Just the slow, patient cold of late December holding everything in suspension. Inside, the house hums very quietly. Not a sound, exactly. More like a presence. The refrigerator cycles on with a low mechanical breath. The old radiator near the hallway ticks softly as the pipes expand and contract. These are the sounds Eleanor knows by heart now. The sounds that mean she's home. She moves from the counter to the table and sits in the chair she always sits in. Not the one at the head, not the one by the window, the one on the side, facing the room. From here, she can see the doorway into the living room, the corner of the stove, the calendar still turned to December, even though Christmas has passed. She hasn't flipped it yet. There's something about leaving it there, suspended in the 26th, that feels appropriate, as if time itself has decided to rest for a moment. Her hands wrap around the mug, absorbing its warmth. The silence in the house is not uncomfortable. It's simply there, the way furniture is there, or walls, or the faint smell of pine that still lingers from the small wreath she hung on the front door 3 weeks ago. There's something about these days after Christmas that Eleanor has come to appreciate, a kind of permission woven into them. Permission to do nothing, to want nothing, to simply exist in the leftover space of a season that demanded so much presence. The visits are over now. Her daughter came on Christmas Eve and stayed through the afternoon of the 25th. They cooked together, exchanged gifts that felt both necessary and slightly hollow, talked about work and weather and plans that didn't require too much detail. It was good, not perfect, but good. And when her daughter left, the house exhaled in a way that Eleanor recognized. Not relief, exactly. Just recognition. The house knew how to be still again. She sets the mug down and lets her gaze drift toward the living room. From here, she can see the edge of the couch, the corner of the coffee table, and the small pine tree she put up 2 weeks ago. It stands in the same spot it always stands, near the window, decorated with lights that she hasn't turned off yet. They glow faintly even in the daylight, soft white pinpricks that blur slightly if she doesn't focus too hard. The tree will come down soon, maybe this weekend, maybe next. There's no urgency. The decorations don't feel festive anymore, but they don't feel wrong either. They're just there, part of the landscape of this in-between time. Eleanor stands and moves toward the living room, her steps slow and deliberate. The floor creaks in the spot it always creaks, just before the threshold between rooms. It's a small sound, familiar as breathing. She doesn't try to avoid it. The living room is dimmer than the kitchen. The light here comes from a single lamp in the corner and the faint glow of the tree lights. The curtains are half drawn, letting in just enough of the winter afternoon to soften the edges of everything without illuminating too much. The couch still holds the impression of where someone sat yesterday. The cushions haven't fully recovered their shape. A blanket lies folded over one arm, its wool texture dark blue and slightly pilled from use. Eleanor sits down in the same spot she sat in last night, and the night before, and the night before that. The cushion accepts her weight without resistance, as if it remembers. She pulls the blanket across her lap, not because she's cold, but because the weight of it feels grounding, comforting in a way that has nothing to do with temperature. On the coffee table in front of her, a book sits open, face down. She doesn't remember what page she was on. It doesn't matter. The book is one she's read before. A novel about a woman who moves to a small town and learns how to be alone without being lonely. Eleanor likes the slow pace of it, the way nothing dramatic happens, the way the story trusts that ordinary moments are enough. She picks up the book and turns it over, finding her place by instinct more than memory. The pages are soft, slightly yellowed at the edges. She begins to read, her eyes moving over words that feel both new and familiar, as if she's reading them for the first time and the 100th time simultaneously. Outside, the afternoon continues its quiet descent toward evening. The light shifts imperceptibly, degree by degree, softening further into something golden and low. Eleanor reads a page, then another. She doesn't rush. There's nowhere to be, nothing to prepare for, and somewhere in the gentle rhythm of reading, of sitting, of simply being still, she realizes something she hadn't quite let herself feel until now. The loneliness she carried through the holidays has loosened its grip. Not disappeared, just softened. Time moves differently in these days after Christmas. Not faster or slower, exactly, just less insistent. As if the urgency that pressed against every hour in December has finally released its hold, leaving behind something more spacious, more forgiving. Eleanor sets the book down after a while, though she's not sure how long she's been reading. 10 minutes, 30. It doesn't matter. The light in the room has shifted again, deepening into that particular shade of amber that only happens in winter. when the sun sits low and the air is cold enough to sharpen everything. She lets her head rest against the back of the couch, her gaze drifting toward the ceiling. There's a small water stain up there, near the corner, shaped vaguely like a bird in flight. She's noticed it before, but never bothered to fix it. It's been there since before she moved in. Maybe it was there when her parents lived here, decades ago. Maybe it watched them too. The thought arrives gently, without pain, her parents. This house was theirs first. Her childhood home, though it doesn't feel like childhood anymore. Too much has changed. The wallpaper in the hallway, the floors refinished. The kitchen cabinets painted a soft cream instead of the dark wood she remembers. But the bones of the house remain, the creak in the floor, the way the light falls, the quiet that settles in after dark. Her mother used to sit in this same room, in the chair by the window, knitting scarves that no one really needed but everyone accepted with gratitude. Her father would be in the kitchen, reading the newspaper at the table, his reading glasses perched low on his nose. They moved slowly through their days, even then, as if they understood that speed was a young person's game, and they had already won by choosing stillness. Eleanor wonders if they felt this same sensation in the days after Christmas. This sense of suspension, this relief at returning to ordinary time. She thinks they must have. Her mother always seemed lighter in late December, as if the holidays exhausted her in ways she would never admit. A sound pulls her attention, not a loud sound, just the soft click of the radiator adjusting itself, sending heat through the pipes in rhythmic pulses. Eleanor listens for a moment, then lets the sound fade into the background again. She shifts on the couch, pulling the blanket higher. The wool is soft against her skin, warm in a way that feels earned. She hasn't done anything today, not really. Made tea, read a little, sat, and somehow that feels like exactly enough. There's a part of her that used to resist days like this. The part that believed productivity was virtue, that stillness was laziness, that time spent doing nothing was time wasted. She carried that belief for years, through her 20s and 30s. Through the decades of raising a daughter and managing a career and showing up for a life that always seemed to demand more than she had to give. But somewhere along the way, that belief started to crack. Maybe it was after her husband passed. Maybe it was during the long, quiet months of the pandemic, when the world itself demanded stillness. Or maybe it was simply age. The slow accumulation of years that taught her the difference between rest and resignation. Now, she lets herself rest. Not every day, not even most days. But on days like this, when the world outside has gone quiet and the house feels like a refuge rather than a cage, she allows herself to simply be. The tree lights blink on and off in their slow, rhythmic pattern. She watches them for a while, letting her focus soften until the lights blur into a gentle glow. There's something hypnotic about it, something that doesn't require thought or interpretation, just presence. Her daughter called earlier. A quick check-in to make sure Eleanor was doing okay, to say thank you again for the gifts, to mention that she got home safely. The conversation lasted maybe 5 minutes, polite, warm enough. But both of them knew they didn't need to say much. The visit was good, The holiday was good, and now it was over, and that was okay too. Eleanor doesn't feel abandoned. She doesn't feel forgotten. She simply feels alone, and for the first time in a long time, that aloneness doesn't ache. The afternoon slips further toward evening. The light in the living room dims another shade, and Eleanor reaches over to turn on the lamp beside the couch. The bulb glows warm and yellow, casting a small circle of illumination that doesn't quite reach the corners of the room. Shadows gather there, soft and unthreatening. She stands slowly, her knees stiff from sitting too long, and moves toward the window. The curtains hang heavy and still. She pulls one side back just slightly, enough to see out into the yard. The oak tree stands skeletal against the darkening sky. Its branches reach upward in patterns that seem both random and intentional, as if the tree has spent years figuring out exactly how to grow. The frost on the grass has thickened now, glittering faintly in the last of the daylight. Everything outside looks held, suspended, waiting. But waiting for what, Eleanor doesn't know. And she's not sure it matters. She lets the curtain fall back into place and turns away from the window. The house around her feels smaller now, more intimate. The walls seem closer, the air warmer. It's the same house it was an hour ago, but something about the approaching evening changes its texture, makes it feel less like a space she inhabits and more like something that holds her. In the kitchen, the mug still sits on the table where she left it. The tea inside has gone cold by now, but Eleanor doesn't pour it out. She simply picks up the mug and carries it to the sink, rinsing it under warm water before setting it in the dish rack to dry. The water runs over her hands, and she holds them there for a moment longer than necessary, feeling the warmth soak into her skin. There's a rhythm to these small actions, a cadence that she's come to rely on. Make tea, drink tea, rinse the mug, dry her hands, move through the house, sit, stand, return. It's not exciting. It's not even particularly meaningful, but it's hers. And in the quiet after Christmas, when the world has stopped asking her to be anything other than herself, that rhythm feels like grace. She dries her hands on the towel hanging beside the sink and glances at the clock on the wall. It's nearly 5. The day is tipping toward evening now, that threshold hour when light and dark negotiate their terms. Soon, the sky will deepen into dusk. The stars will appear, faint at first, then brighter, and the house will settle even further into its nighttime self. Eleanor moves back to the living room and sits again, this time in the chair by the window. It's her mother's chair, though she tries not to think of it that way too often. The cushion is firm, supportive in a way the couch isn't. From here, she can see both the room and the darkening world outside. The tree lights continue their slow blink, on, off, on, off. She watches them without thinking, her mind drifting in that way it does when there's nothing urgent to hold on to. There was a time, years ago, when she would have filled a night like this with activity, turned on the television, called a friend, found some project to occupy her hands and her thoughts. But tonight, she doesn't reach for distraction. She simply sits, and in the sitting, she finds something she didn't know she was looking for. peace, not the dramatic kind, not the kind that announces itself with fanfare, just the quiet, steady kind that arrives when you stop resisting the life you're actually living. The evening deepens. The light outside fades to a deep blue-gray, and the stars begin to appear, one by one. Faint pinpricks against the vast expanse of winter sky. Eleanor watches them emerge, patient and unhurried, as if they have all the time in the world. And in the warm glow of her mother's chair, in the house that holds her history and her present all at once, Eleanor allows herself to simply exist. No plans, no expectations, just this. Just now, just enough. The house settles into evening the way old houses do. Not all at once, but gradually, through a series of small adjustments. A creak here, a sigh there, the radiator ticking its metallic rhythm, the refrigerator humming its low, steady note. These are the sounds of a house remembering how to be lived in without being crowded. Eleanor remains in the chair by the window, her hands folded in her lap. She's not doing anything, exactly, not reading, not thinking about anything in particular. Just sitting in the gathering dark, watching the way the room transforms as the last of the daylight slips away. The tree lights seem brighter now, their glow more insistent against the dimness. They cast small halos on the ornaments, most of which are glass balls in shades of silver and gold. Simple decorations, nothing elaborate. Eleanor has never been one for elaborate. She prefers things that are quiet, understated. Things that don't demand too much attention. One ornament catches her eye. A small wooden star, hand-painted in white with gold edges. Her daughter made it in elementary school, maybe 2nd or 3rd grade. The paint is chipped now, the gold faded to a dull bronze, but Eleanor hangs it every year in the same spot, near the front of the tree where she can see it easily. She's not sure why she keeps it. Her daughter is grown now, with her own apartment and her own life. The ornament is just a relic of childhood, a memento of a time that no longer exists. But there's something about it that Eleanor can't let go of. Maybe it's the simplicity of it, the earnestness, the way it was made by small hands that believed a wooden star was the most beautiful thing in the world. Or maybe it's just that letting go has never been her strength. The thought arrives without judgment. She's learned over the years not to berate herself for the things she holds on to. Everyone carries something. Some people carry grudges. Some carry regrets. Eleanor carries small wooden stars and chipped ceramic mugs and houses that used to belong to other people. She shifts in the chair, adjusting the pillow behind her back. The fabric is worn smooth from use, the pattern barely visible anymore. It's a pillow her mother embroidered decades ago, a design of flowers that might be roses or might be peonies. Eleanor has never been sure, but it's soft, and it fits perfectly in the curve of her spine, and that's all that matters. The darkness outside is nearly complete now. The sky has gone from blue-grey to black, and the stars are fully visible, scattered across the expanse like salt spilled on dark fabric. There's no moon tonight, or if there is, it hasn't risen yet. Just stars, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Eleanor has never been good at estimating numbers like that. She stands slowly, her body protesting slightly after sitting for so long, and moves toward the kitchen. The room is darker now, lit only by the faint glow from the living room and the small light above the stove. She flips the switch for the overhead light, and the kitchen floods with brightness that feels harsh for a moment before her eyes adjust. The clock on the wall reads 5:43. Dinner should probably happen soon, though Eleanor isn't particularly hungry. She opens the refrigerator and stares at the contents. Leftovers from Christmas dinner, a carton of eggs, some cheese, a half-empty jar of pasta sauce. Nothing appeals to her. She closes the refrigerator and leans against the counter, her arms crossed. Sometimes, on nights like this, she wonders if she should make more of an effort. Cook something proper. Set the table. Eat like a person who takes meals seriously. But the truth is, she doesn't always want to. And the older she gets, the less she feels the need to perform routine for its own sake. She makes herself a piece of toast instead. Simple. Quick enough. The toaster hums as the bread warms, and Eleanor waits, her gaze drifting toward the window above the sink. It's too dark to see much outside now. Just the vague outline of the fence and the distant glow of a neighbor's porch light. When the toast pops up, she spreads butter on it and takes a bite. The bread is warm and slightly crispy at the edges, the butter melting into the surface. It's not a meal, exactly, but it's sustenance. And tonight, that's all she needs. She carries the toast back to the living room and sits on the couch this time, the blanket once again pulled across her lap. The toast disappears quickly, eaten in small, deliberate bites that require no thought. When she's finished, she brushes the crumbs from her hands and sets the plate on the coffee table. The house is fully dark now, except for the lamp and the tree lights. The darkness doesn't bother her. If anything, it feels appropriate, comforting even, as if the night is offering her a kind of privacy that daylight never can. Eleanor leans back against the cushions and closes her eyes, not because she's tired, but because it feels good to shut out even the dim light for a moment. Behind her eyelids, she sees nothing, just the faint afterimage of the tree lights, ghostly and distant. She breathes in slowly, then out again. The air in the room is warm, slightly dry from the radiator. It smells faintly of pine and dust and the lingering scent of the butter from her toast. Ordinary smells, unremarkable, but they're the smells of home, and that makes them precious in a way she couldn't have articulated if someone asked. When she opens her eyes again, the room looks the same. The tree, the lamp, the shadows in the corners. But something in her has shifted, not dramatically, not even noticeably, just a small loosening, a subtle release of something she didn't realize she was holding. She's been carrying the weight of the holidays for weeks now, the planning, the worry, the effort of making everything feel right, even when nothing felt entirely right. And now that it's over, now that the house is hers again and the days have returned to their ordinary rhythm, she can finally let that weight go. Not all at once, but little by little, breath by breath, moment by quiet moment. Eleanor stays on the couch for a long time, watching the tree lights blink their slow pattern. On, off, on, off. The rhythm is soothing, almost meditative. She doesn't think about anything specific, doesn't plan or worry or wonder. She simply exists in the space between one breath and the next, letting the night hold her the way the house holds her, the way the chair held her mother all those years ago. And somewhere in that stillness, she realizes something she's known all along but hasn't quite been able to name. This is enough. This quiet house, this ordinary evening, this life that asks nothing more of her than to show up and breathe and let the days unfold as they will. It's not the life she imagined when she was younger. It's not the life anyone imagines, probably, but it's hers. And in the soft glow of the tree lights, in the silence after Christmas, it feels like exactly what it is. Enough. The night deepens around the house like water filling a bowl, slowly, gently, without force. Eleanor remains on the couch, the blanket warm across her lap, her body relaxed in a way that only comes when there's nowhere else to be. She's not sure when she last felt this still. Not physically still, she's been sitting for hours now, but still in the deeper sense. The kind of stillness that happens inside, in the place where thoughts usually churn and worries usually circle. Tonight, that place is quiet, not empty, just quiet, as if her mind has finally agreed to rest. The tree lights continue their patient rhythm. She's long since stopped counting the seconds between each blink. It doesn't matter anymore. The pattern has become part of the room, part of the night, part of the gentle fabric of this evening that asks nothing and offers everything. Outside, the world is winter dark and silent. No cars pass on the street. No voices carry through the cold air. Even the wind has stilled. It's the kind of silence that feels intentional, as if the night itself has decided to hold its breath. Eleanor shifts slightly, pulling the blanket higher, and her gaze drifts to the mantel above the fireplace. She hasn't used the fireplace in years. Too much work, too much mess. But she keeps it anyway, along with the things arranged on the mantel. A small clock that stopped working sometime last spring. A framed photograph of her daughter at age 7, gap-toothed and grinning. A smooth stone she picked up on a beach in Oregon 15 years ago, back when she still took vacations that required plane tickets and careful planning. The photograph catches her eye tonight. Her daughter's face, frozen in that moment of uncomplicated joy that children have before the world teaches them to measure their happiness. Eleanor remembers that day, a birthday party in the backyard, balloons tied to the fence, a cake shaped like a butterfly, lopsided and too sweet, but made with love. Her daughter wore a yellow dress and ran barefoot through the grass, shrieking with laughter every time someone chased her. Eleanor wonders if her daughter remembers it the same way. Probably not. Memory is strange like that. What feels monumental to one person is ordinary to another. But the photograph remains, a small artifact of a day that mattered, even if no one can quite remember why. She looks away from the mantel and lets her gaze settle on nothing in particular, just the dim shapes of furniture, the play of shadow and light, the way the tree lights make everything look softer than it is. There's a kind of peace in this, she thinks, in not needing the night to be anything other than what it is. No television to fill the silence. No book to distract her thoughts. No tasks waiting to be completed. Just the simple act of sitting, breathing, being. She's not sure when she learned how to do this. Or maybe she always knew, and it just took her this long to remember. Either way, it feels like something earned. A kind of wisdom that doesn't announce itself, but simply settles in, quiet and unshakable. When you've lived long enough to understand what matters and what doesn't. The clock on the mantle, despite not working, shows a time that is probably hours off. Eleanor glances at the actual clock on the wall in the kitchen, visible through the doorway. 6:38. The evening is still young, though it feels later. Time has a way of stretching out on nights like this, becoming elastic and forgiving. She considers making more tea, but the thought passes as quickly as it arrives. She doesn't need tea. She doesn't need anything. That's the revelation, quiet and unremarkable. For once, she is exactly where she wants to be, doing exactly what she wants to do. Nothing. The word used to frighten her. Nothing. It sounded like emptiness, like failure, like a life not fully lived. But tonight, nothing feels like the most generous gift she could give herself. Permission to exist without purpose. To be still without apology. A memory surfaces, unbidden but gentle. Her mother, sitting in this same living room, in that chair by the window. It was evening then too. Maybe winter, maybe not. Her mother was knitting something, a scarf, probably, or the start of one end. The needles clicked softly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. Eleanor had been younger then, in her 20s, maybe, visiting for the weekend. She remembers feeling restless, eager to leave, to get back to the city and her life and all the things that seemed so important at the time. Her mother had looked up from her knitting and smiled. Not a big smile, just a small one, the kind that didn't ask for anything in return. And she'd said, so quietly that Eleanor almost didn't hear it, "There's no hurry, you know. Everything will still be there tomorrow." At the time, Eleanor had nodded politely and thought her mother was being sentimental, old-fashioned, out of touch with the pace of modern life. But now, sitting in the same room, in the same evening stillness, she understands. Her mother wasn't being sentimental, she was being wise. She had learned something that Eleanor is only now beginning to grasp. That the world doesn't stop when you stop. That rest isn't the enemy of progress. That sometimes the most meaningful thing you can do is nothing at all. The thought sits with her, weightless but present. She doesn't turn it over or examine it too closely. She simply lets it be, the way she's letting the night be, the way she's letting herself be. The radiator ticks again, a soft metallic sound that punctuates the silence without breaking it. Eleanor listens, and in the listening, she realizes something else. She's not lonely tonight. She's alone, yes. But loneliness and aloneness are not the same thing. Loneliness is absence that aches. Aloneness is presence that doesn't need to be filled. Tonight, she is alone, and it doesn't ache. She pulls the blanket a little tighter, not because she's cold, but because the weight of it feels grounding. The wool is soft and slightly scratchy at the same time, a texture she's known for so long that it's become part of her sense of home. This blanket has been with her through so many nights, through illness and grief and sleepless hours, when the world felt too big and too heavy. It has absorbed tears and warmth, and the quiet comfort of being held, even when there was no one else to do the holding. Outside, a single car passes on the street, its headlights briefly illuminating the curtains before disappearing into the distance. The sound fades quickly, swallowed by the winter night, and then the silence returns as if it never left. Eleanor closes her eyes again, and this time she lets herself sink deeper into the moment, not to escape it, but to fully inhabit it. She feels the cushions beneath her, the blanket across her lap, the slight pressure of her back against the couch. She hears the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the radiator, the faint creak of the house settling into night. And beneath all of it, she feels her own breath. In, out, steady and reliable, the one constant in a life that has changed more times than she can count. This is what remains, she thinks. When everything else falls away, this is what's left: breath, presence, the simple fact of being alive, here, now, in this moment that will never come again. The tree lights blink, on, off, and Eleanor, held by the night and the house and the quiet that has become her companion, allows herself to simply be. No plans, no expectations, no need to be anything other than exactly what she is. Enough. The hours pass in a way that feels both measured and dreamlike. Eleanor doesn't move from the couch. She doesn't feel the need to. The living room has become its own small universe, complete and self-contained, and she is content to remain within its boundaries. At some point, she notices that the tree lights have begun to blur slightly. Not from malfunction, but from the way her vision softens when she doesn't focus on anything specific. It's a kind of seeing without looking, a gentle unfocusing that lets the world exist without demanding it be sharp or clear. She thinks about the days ahead. Tomorrow will come, and with it, the slow return of routine. She'll wake up, make coffee, perhaps go to the grocery store or fold the laundry that's been sitting in the basket since before Christmas. Life will resume its ordinary shape, and she'll move through it the way she always does, deliberately, quietly, without fanfare. But tonight is different. Tonight exists outside of routine, in that liminal space between celebration and ordinary time. It's a threshold hour, a pause before the world starts moving again, and Eleanor is grateful for it. Grateful for the permission to rest. Grateful for the silence that doesn't need to be filled. Grateful for the house that knows how to hold her, even when she doesn't know how to hold herself. The darkness outside is complete now. The stars are bright and steady, scattered across the sky in patterns she's never learned the names of. She thinks about stepping outside for a moment, just to feel the cold air on her face, but she doesn't. The thought is enough, the imagining of it. Sometimes that's all you need. Inside, the warmth continues. The radiator pulses its steady heat. The tree lights glow. The house breathes around her, alive in its own quiet way. Eleanor pulls the blanket up to her shoulders and settles even deeper into the couch. Her body feels heavy now, not with tiredness exactly, but with the kind of settled weight that comes when you finally stopped resisting, stopped striving, stopped trying to be anything other than what you are. She thinks of her daughter, safe in her own apartment across town. She thinks of her mother, long gone but still present in the chair by the window, in the embroidered pill, in the way the house remembers. She thinks of her husband, whose absence is no longer sharp, but has softened into something more like companionship, a presence that doesn't require visibility to be felt. All of these people exist in her, carried forward through time, woven into the fabric of who she is. They are not gone. They are simply changed, transformed into memory, into love, into the quiet knowledge that she has been held and has held others in return. And that, she realizes, is its own kind of grace. The tree lights blink, on, off, on, off. The pattern is hypnotic now, pulling her deeper into the stillness. Her thoughts begin to drift, not towards sleep exactly, but towards something softer, a kind of rest that doesn't require unconsciousness, just release. She lets her eyes close, and behind the lids, she sees the faint glow of the lights still, ghostly and distant. She doesn't try to hold on to them. She lets them come and go, the way thoughts come and go, the way moments come and go, the way everything comes and goes, eventually in, out, in, out. Her breath continues its steady rhythm, and the night continues its patient hold, and the house continues its quiet conversation with time. Eleanor rests, not because she's tired, not because she needs to prepare for tomorrow, but simply because she can. Because this moment, this night, this house, this life has given her permission to stop, to be still, to let the world turn without her for a while. And in the warmth of the living room, in the soft glow of the tree lights, in the gentle silence that holds no expectation, Eleanor allows herself to finally, fully, deeply rest. The last thing she's aware of, before the stillness takes her completely, is the tree lights blinking their patient rhythm, on, off, and then even that fades, and there is only the quiet, the house, the night, and Eleanor, held by all of it, lets go. The night continues without announcement. The stars outside remain steady in their patterns. The cold air holds the world gently in place. Inside the house, the radiator ticks its soft rhythm. The refrigerator hums. The tree lights glow. And Eleanor, wrapped in her blanket, rests in the space between waking and sleep, between solitude and companionship, between what was and what is. This is the quiet that comes after everything else has finished. This is the peace that doesn't need to be earned or justified or explained. This is simply what remains, and it is enough. It has always been enough.